I'm Miss Geringer.
And I'm Dr. Torres.
Welcome to Praggin N Braggin.
Hello, my name is Guillermo Perano.
And I'm Victoria Hoffman.
Both of us are second-year students at the Colby School of Innovative Studies. We're about to receive our associate's degrees.
Perfect. Yes, you are.
Welcome to Praggin N Braggin, a podcast created by students of the program where we interview professors, administrators, and students who are part of the Colby School.
In this first episode, we are interviewing Dr. Tara Torres, the founder of the Pragmatic Studies program.
Hello.
We will discuss not only her background, but we will also discuss the founding of the program, its surprise success in its future. So sit back, enjoy, and listening to our podcast.
Hello, Dr. Torres.
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good. Just happy, excited that this is finally happening.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
We've been working on this for a while.
Yes.
How does it feel to see this finally become a reality, the podcast?
You know what? You guys never cease to amaze me. I always talk about, and I know I've told you guys, all good ideas and good inventions and good treaties and good social movements come from people that do life differently. And that's certainly all of us. And so I am not at all surprised. I am super excited. And when I had the idea to do the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, who better to put it together? So yeah, this is exciting.
Those who are listening to this podcast have no idea what this program is. So I was wondering if you would like to explain them what it is,
Yep. So we have at University of St. Thomas, in the Colby School of Innovative and Professional Studies, we have a major for an associate's degree. It's called an Associates of Applied Science in Pragmatic Studies. And it is a fully accredited college degree. It's a 2-year degree is where it starts, that is specifically designed for students that have learning differences. So all of our students are very bright people. They can read and write and do math and all the things that we do in college. But they process things maybe a little differently. They do things differently. And globally, when I was putting this whole thing together, and when I was working with the team that helped, what we were looking at is options for people that do life differently. So, people that have severe and profound disabilities have some really good options. There's lots of vocational training and those kinds of things that are available at the community colleges, but a college option with a college degree as opposed to a certificate that's accredited with coursework that is tailored to students that do life differently, that are smart. They can read, they can write, they can do math, they can process things, they can make friends, all of the things that we do as adults. There just wasn't such an option. So in this particular major, it is just a major. It's not I know we call it a program all the time, but there's nothing programmatic really about it. It's just a major. Just does it different.
I would like to start where you were born.
I was born in Mount Clemens, Michigan, outside Detroit. I have no memory of that because we moved here when I was 2, and I've been here ever since. I grew up on the east side of Houston. Yeah.
Were you a happy kid? Did you have a great childhood?
I had a really good childhood. I grew up in the 80s. My parents were baby boomers, and so all the things would come up with that. All the things that you see on social media now, with drinking water out of hoses, and riding our bikes around till the end of time, and having to be in before the street lights came on. I did all of those things. But yeah, I have a brother and a sister who are both super successful. My brother he does an engineer's job. He has an education in math. And he went to graduate school in Boston, lives in Nashua, New Hampshire. Hey, Luke. And then my sister, Brittany, has done a couple of things. She worked in oil and gas for a long time, and then she's worked in event planning. She's owned her own business. So yeah, I have a pretty great family. Yeah.
What made you choose to do education as your career?
Actually, I did not pick education. In fact, I remember myself saying I would never be an educator. I had no interest. I've always tended to march to my own drummer and kind of push up against boundaries and disrupt systems, and educators are not known for that. So I kind of fell into it, actually.
What did you originally wanted to major in while you were in college?
When I was in college, I was one of those people that majored in everything 27 times. Every time I took a class, I was like, oh my gosh, except art history. That was never a major. But every time I took a class, I would think, oh my gosh, I love this. This is so cool. It's so exciting. And so I would go do the change of major form. And so the one I stuck with the longest was anthropology. And then I transferred schools, and the anthropology department at the school I transferred to was kind of lackluster. It wasn't the focus there wasn't as interesting to me. And so then I got a job working in residential treatment with kids that were court ordered. They had felonies, and they were placed in residential treatment settings for behavioral and conduct disorders. And I loved it. So I got an undergraduate degree in sociology, and then from there got a job as an educator when I moved back to Texas because one of my good friends was doing it and it sounded like fun. And now here I am, 20 years later.
So what made you want to do special education? Do you have a
It wasn't special education that I wanted to do. It was that I wanted to work with people who did things differently, because I understood that population. I'm part of that population, and I wanted to work with people that didn't fit into boxes and people that pushed boundaries, and people that, again, that disrupted systems. And I found those spaces very freeing for me. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily special education. It was, I wanted to work with people that did things their own way, marched their own drummers.
When was the moment that made you thought about creating the program?
I'm an educational diagnostician by trade, and a conversation that I would have oftentimes with parents when we were working with kids who had, ADHD and dyslexia and learning disabilities and autism and all the things, was what happens to my kid after high school, because they certainly can go to college, but they're probably going to need some different kinds of supports than are usually offered. And as a diagnostician, that was a frustrating conversation to have, because I knew that there weren't any post-secondary options. And then in August of 16, I read an article about a school up outside of Seattle called Bellevue College that was doing some work in that field, and it took off from there. I just thought the need is there, and I've always been very solution oriented as opposed to talking about a problem for 8 months. Let's find a solution. And so my thought was, well, we have this need, and we have a group of people that are severely marginalized, and I think there's a way to solve that issue. I think that there's a way to make things better for that population. And in my mind, what was the worst that could happen? I proposed it and they said no, and whatever. So.
Was it difficult selling the program to this university?
No, not at all. When I first started talking about it, I started talking about it with a couple of colleagues, and of course, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea," but they're like, "That's a great idea. Go do it." And so, and I'm happy to do things by myself, so it's totally okay. So they're like, "Yeah, go do it." And so I put this whole thing together, and then I had worked with the dean. She was the associate dean of a different department at the time, Dr. Walters. So I had a conversation with her in a setting with a couple of other people, just kind of offhanded. Hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And she said, I'm 100% in. We got green lights all the way. It took me 5 years to get it going, but it wasn't because of the university. It was because there was, we wanted to get it accredited, so there was a process for that. We had to, you have to go through several steps. And so going through those steps sometimes would get exhausting and frustrating. And there were a couple times where I thought, this is too much, whatever. But no, the university gave me green lights the whole way. Yeah.
Did you try ever having it or selling it to other universities here in Houston?
No, I did not. I started here, and I wanted it to be here because I love the campus. I love the part of town. And this university is my oldest son went to school here, and this university I just feel like is a perfect place. It's perfect size. There's really good people here, and we really had the infrastructure to support it and all of that. So,
what was the most difficult part about creating the program?
probably going through the steps, because we'd get to, they'd say, they being the entities would say, well, you got to do this, and so I'd do this, and then it'd be like, okay, we're good to go, and then they'd come back and say, well, no, now you need this. I was like, oh my god, okay, so we would do that and send it up, and then they would say, oh no, now you need this.
Would you have preferred them just tell you everything up front, what you
Yes.
needed?
Yes, 100%. And there was actually one time, my very good friend Shelley Swedlaw, who we worked together in another department, was helping me with all of this stuff. And I remember telling her one time, "This is too much. Like the red tape is ridiculous. This is just too much." And she said, "Well, if you want to make the call to the families and the students and tell them we changed our minds, go ahead." And I thought, nope. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We said we were going to fight this battle. We said we were going to blaze the trail, and I'm not putting it down. And so that always kept me going. I would get frustrated, but then I'd remember, I'm accountable to this group of people that I promised to serve. So,
Did you think that you would find the right professors who could help these kids?
oh yes. I used to be. We had a master's program. I guess we still have it. But a certification to be educational diagnosticians. We also had certifications to be special education teachers, and I was the chair of those initiatives. And so I knew I had a ton of people to pull from in terms of faculty, because the need is so great. And that's the world professionally that I live in, is in the land of difference, right? So, and we had so much support, and there were so many green lights that I kept in touch with, as a matter of fact, a lot of the faculty are alumni of UST, and I've always kept in touch and had good relationships with students that I've taught. So I wasn't at all worried about that.
When creating the program, were there any professors you had in mind when?
Oh yeah.
Starting?
Yep. Dr. Barrett was, she was one of the first ones, her and Kamal Malik, who Kamal was one of my oldest students, and Dr. Barrett, I knew because she was finishing her doctoral program here, and we had met a couple times to talk about some professional stuff. And I had approached Dr. B first and said, hey, what do you think of this idea? And she said, ooh, I'm down. And I called Kamal Malik, who's an old student of mine, but we kept in touch professionally. And I said, hey man, I have this idea. And he said, oh, I'm down. So yeah, no, it was very easy to find people.
One of the aspects that makes this program unique is we have a class called Academic Strategies that helps the students with their work from their assignments that they've been given. How did you decide to have that class?
Well, remember, we're serving a population that does things differently. And so one of the challenges we knew was going to be that transition from high school, or from students that weren't in high school anymore, so they'd had a gap. But that transition from whatever they were doing into a college setting was probably going to be a challenge. And so we knew that we were going to be serving a population that probably struggles with executive functioning, and organization, and all of the things related to that, and in a lot of circumstances. And so having that academic strategies course that's manned by a learning therapist was pivotal to the whole program, because that really was going to be kind of the place where students had a new level of academic and social and emotional support that they have never had in college before. So that's an integral piece for sure.
When you and the professors were beginning to find students for the first cohort, how did you figure out the process of finding the right ones?
Well, we knew that an admissions interview was going to be crucial, because we needed to know who was coming in the door. And one of the things I learned when I was chair of other programs was who matters more than what's on the paperwork, right? And so we had this this thought, or I had this thought that we would be working with people with learning differences and people who do life differently, and that's not something that can be captured on paper. That is certainly something that that we need.
When you and the professors were beginning to search for students for the first cohort, how did you figure out the process of finding the right ones for the program?
Well, we knew for sure that there was going to have to be an admissions interview because we knew that as educators, it was more important who we were teaching than what we were teaching, right? Because we all subscribe to the idea that you can teach anybody anything. You have to know who you're teaching. So the admissions interview we knew was going to be crucial. We also wanted to verify that academic levels were at least at a functional level where students could do college level work, even if we had to put some supports in place. And so that meant that we needed some kind of an evaluation or something to substantiate what those reading, writing, and math levels were. Mm-hmm. And then we also threw in a letter of recommendation because we wanted applicants to feel the support of the community around them, right? So if I have to ask for a letter of recommendation from someone, then that someone is going to say that I am able to be successful in college, and so that's a level of support that an applicant would feel. Yeah.
Did you already know for the first cohort that you'd only have 12 students?
Listen, we were told we had to have that. I was given 3 years to get 10, and so we. In the course of putting the program together, somebody had told me in the marketing department, just talk about it everywhere, just talk about it. So I was like, okay, I just started telling everybody about it. And the people that were working on it with me, Dr. B, Shelley Swedlaw, Miss Callagher was on that team. The people that were doing it with me, we just started telling people about it. And so we found just random people that were like, ooh, I'll do it. Ooh, I want to do it. Ooh, I want to do it. So we ended up with 12. And the reason we had 12 was not really stated. There wasn't really a reason for that, except that we got the approval from the accreditation body in like February, and so we didn't have a ton of time to recruit for the fall. But that was okay. We thought it's better to launch with a small group and kind of work out some of the kinks, and that's what we did.
What made you decide that number specifically, or is that just how it worked out?
Well, part of it is that's how it worked out. The other part is when I put the program together, I was very deliberate in creating or using the idea of a cohort model. So there would be no classes bigger than 12. I think I put 12 to 15 in the initial pitch, but we very quickly cut that down to 12. Something about that 13th person. And then with the instructor makes it 14 people in the room seemed to be more challenging for everybody, and 12 seemed to kind of be a sweet spot. So we had set it up in cohort style that we wouldn't have any cohorts bigger than that to begin with.
Who was the first student that you and the professor sat down for an interview?
Chris Boardman. He's now graduated, and he is going through a vet tech certification program. He was the very first student. He helped us put together the curriculum too. The ideas we wrote all the curriculum, or I did, but he helped us put together, kind of like what topics do we want to teach and what do we think we need to know. He's the one that actually came up with the idea for a social media class.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is he in the bachelor's?
Nope. I'm hearing chirping that he might be returning, but I have it on good authority that he might be returning for his bachelor's, but we'll see.
Are there any students that you were interviewing for the first cohort that didn't make the final cut?
Yeah, we've had students, and this has kind of happened each interview cycle. We've had students that have interviewed that for a couple of reasons. Either they don't require the supports that are needed and they just need the confidence to be able to go into a college setting without the level of supports that Pragmatic Studies provides. And we've also had students that have interviewed or have gone through the application process that needed more supports than we could provide. And so there are certainly great programs out there for students that need more supports. So yeah, that's happened.
How difficult is that for you, not having to accept students in this program that you care
The challenge is not that they're not a good fit for pragmatic studies. What always worries me is then where are they a good fit? And so we're very deliberate about, okay, this isn't, when we tell families, this isn't probably a good fit, but here are some other options. And we have certainly bridged those, or created those bridges and extended those lifelines for students to help them get into other programs. I just want to make sure that there's an opportunity, because, when you're finishing high school and you're 18 years old, what are you supposed to do with yourself if you have no skills, no education, what are you supposed to do? And the world requires you to do this thing called adulting, but if we don't put the things in place for you to do that, then how do you do it? So it's not necessarily that we don't feel like it's a good fit in pragmatic studies, it's then where are they a good fit?
Yeah. What aspects of interviewing the first cohort surprised you the most?
When we did the first cohort, we used to do scripted interview questions, and I would send the questions out. It was very meticulous. I'd send the questions out 42 hours ahead of time, and blah blah blah, and students could prepare. And then we've just gotten away from that. And I think one of the things initially, I thought the questions idea was a great thing. We would send the questions ahead of time so students wouldn't be anxious and they wouldn't be as nervous. And then we've gotten away from that because what we learned out of that process was creating a more authentic conversation was more helpful for our purposes. So,
is it fair saying that you learned a lot by interviewing them?
Yes, because we talk to students about what they feel like their assets and liabilities are. What do they hope to gain from coming to college? What is it about pragmatic studies that's interesting to them, or where they feel like they would be a good fit? And we're really starting that a lot of times initial conversation of students learning how to advocate for themselves and learning how to say, there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with my brain. College is an option for me and I can do it, and this is a good fit for me.
One of the other great things about this program is that students get to be a part of campus community.
Yes.
Not just living in the dorms, but also having them participate in events and stuff like that. Is that something that you wanted from the very beginning?
Yep, I absolutely was not willing to do a program where students were relegated into some special building or some special classroom. And I was very clear about that when I pitched the whole thing, that this was going to be a full inclusion, full immersion program. It's academic. We're not in the business of handing out degrees. It's college work. But I was very, very deliberate with pushing that envelope that we have a population of people that has not had the opportunity. It's not that they can't do it. They haven't had the opportunity to do it. And so they're either going to be completely immersed in full-fledged college students, or I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not willing to be a part of something that is putting kids or young adults in boxes and labeling and cutting off resources.
Speaking of student life, do you have advice for people who are starting, like how to get involved on campus and stuff like that?
I would say to get involved on campus, you just got to put yourself out there. And that is very hard.
It is hard for some people.
Yeah, if you do life differently, it's hard for me. Social stuff is always hard for me. Always has been. I've always kind of been the weirdo that doesn't fit in. And so putting yourself out there and, going through the process of maybe this works, maybe this doesn't work. All of that can be stressful. It can be, full of anxious moments. But we live, we're in a social microcosm, and we're social creatures, and I believe that we're designed to be that way. And so there's got to be some kind of happy medium between, like if we're introverted, or if we like to be alone, or we like to be by ourselves, how do we do that and still exist in this bigger picture? So yeah, put yourself out there. And there's so many of us now on campus. There's so many of us that when I've had students or parents that have said, oh my gosh, like I want my student to do this, or I want my kid to do this, or I want to be able to do that. We've hooked them up. I mean, we've hooked them up with you. I don't know how many times. And I know you're over at the career services and you're working with them. So we have lots of connections and avenues to get that going.
Once you had the first cohort of students, how did that make you feel?
Super validated, because I thought, see, I told you there was a need. And then when the second cohort came and we had more students, I was like, I told you. And so, and then it really wasn't a matter of I told you so. Initially, probably was, but then it really was like, finally, somebody is doing something. You know, that you have. This is ridiculous. We're in 2024, and there should not be such limited options for people. There's nothing wrong with us. We just do it different, and what's wrong with that? So yeah, it was. That was where I was.
Did the program start during COVID-19?
No, we were gonna before COVID. So I started working on it in August of 16, and initially, yes, we wanted to. When I was looking at let's launch in August of 2020 or something. Well, COVID hit, and I was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that, because that was all the online stuff.
Virtual, yeah.
Yes, and we were absolutely not doing anything virtual. This program is face to face. All of us in pragmatic studies do much better for a host of reasons with face to face interactions. And so, what was the question with you?
Well, I just wanted, now that we interrupted.
With COVID.
And so I was like, I saw COVID-19. I wanted to make sure that was even a question.
Yes, for sure. So COVID hit and it pushed everything back. And so we were kind of in this holding pattern of like, well, what are we going to do? Because and there was a lot of question, not just in higher ed, but you guys know in P12 and across the community, like how are we going to come back together? Because there's got to be an end. At some point, surely there's an end to it. And so ultimately when people started kind of coming out of the woodwork, and then we were talking about, okay, it was a blessing that we didn't try to launch during COVID, because virtual was just not an option. And that we didn't push back because of COVID. We pushed back because we were waiting on some accreditation stuff. So it ended up being a good pause for us.
Yeah. Were you surprised on how successful the program began when it first started?
I wasn't. I don't know if I was surprised. I don't know that I entertained that so much as I did a couple of times. I asked Andres, my husband, I asked him a couple times, what if it doesn't work? And we would kind of talk through that a little bit. But I had a student when I was doing the DIAG program, a graduate student, I was talking about it to everybody, and at that point, and I said, sometimes I wonder, what if it doesn't work? What if I'm wrong? What if, all this? I thought there was this need, and and she said, well, she said her spiritual belief system led her to think that this was divine intervention, that this was a God-given idea, and that if God gives you an idea, then it will come to fruition. And I thought, oh, you mean, like God doesn't give you things you can't handle? And she said, no, that's not what I mean. She said, what I mean is there's an identified problem. There's obviously a problem. You have a marginalized community. And there's an idea for how to serve that community and how to potentially fix the problem. And if the idea came from God, you have to see it through and it will work. And so I always took that as, so not so much as, was I surprised that it would be successful, but my question, I did kind of have that thing, God, what if it doesn't work? But I got green lights all the way through at UST, then we had the launch date, then we had 12 students, and then I thought, ultimately, if we have 12 students, and if I don't get any other students, then these 12 students have changed my life, and I have opened, hopefully, have helped to open some doors and created some opportunities for these 12, and these 12 matter. And if we get no other students, then these 12 matter. And that's obviously not the way it worked out. We have lots more students now, but I went into it really with that when it's all said and done, if we can make a difference with these 12, then that's enough for me. That's enough.
Seeing all the local news and media coverage about the program, did that surprise you?
Yeah, that's wild. And the media department here, first I went on the new, I don't even remember what channel it was, maybe channel 2, I don't know. Then I was on Telemundo with an interpreter. I had Miss Jimenez, who's faculty, Elizabeth Jimenez, and she's Spanish speaking, and so she did that Telemundo piece, and then it's just blown up crazy. We had stuff on YouTube. Marianne Hughes is one of our parents, and she has a online presence, and so she was pushing some stuff on YouTube. We had tons of parent support, parents saying, let's get the word out, let's get the word out, let's get the word out. And that, yeah, we didn't know how we were going to market it, other than, what we did at first was I was sending flyers and emails to every school district in Region 4 area. We were sent, then we got a call from Emily Manico. She was in Reno, Nevada, because she had seen an article in the UST magazine about it. And so, no, I don't even know if surprised was the word.
I saw her interview, whenever I was here in my day in shadowing, Tommy showed me her interview.
Yeah.
KOG11.
Yeah, it was it was Channel 11. Yeah. So that
and
was
then there's
wild.
also the students now pushing it out.
Yeah, now the students pushing it out.
I talk about it every time my family comes over.
Yeah, and the students have been such great ambassadors. But that's with anything, right? If you, that's how we are as consumers. If you have a great experience with something, then you're going to talk about it. If you have a terrible experience with something, that you're going to talk about it. So, yeah, that's been crazy. So now I just have to make sure I always have my lipstick on, because I've done a couple of them without my lipstick, and I look super washed out. So
during the first year of the program, what made you decide to create a second cohort?
Because the need. We had, people kept calling and calling and calling and calling, and so we thought, well, okay, let's see where this goes. And then, we were holding fast to no cohorts bigger than 12. So the second cohort was 33. We had 3 cohorts. Third cohort was 48. We had 4 cohorts. We have a 4th cohort coming in the fall, and there's going to be 4 cohorts there. We're almost at the point of having a waiting list, which is what we had last year, because 4 cohorts seems to be kind of the sweet spot for us. So those plus the the new bachelor's add-on in the fall, we'll be running 11 cohorts.
Wow.
Yep, and at 12 per cohort, 13 for the bachelor's. We're, do the math on that, we're 120, 130 students, which is wild. Yeah, but yeah, the reason we kept going is because the need is still there, so.
How many possible students did you and the professors interview for the second cohort?
I don't remember how many we interviewed. I know we admitted 34. And one of them did not come back after the second year. I think he might be coming back this fall, but we'll see. So there are 33 of them that are going to graduate in a couple weeks.
Was the number bigger than the first?
Yeah, so we started with 12, and then we went to 33, and then 48, and now, I don't even know, 40-something is coming in. So.
Was it difficult to sift through the students and decide? Because we're getting to that waiting list.
Yeah,
was it difficult to?
Yeah,
so like, who am I accepting?
Well, when we go through the admissions process, if you are admitted, then we don't wait. The deadline for applications is June 1st, right? But last year we filled up in March. Now we're about to be full this month, and so we're admitting them as they come in, as they meet the requirements. So we're not waiting till June and saying, okay, we're going to take here's the criteria to take the top whatever, or the whatever. We're not doing it like that. We're, as they're coming in, if they meet the requirements, we're admitting them.
What was the decision in having cohort 2 be split into 3 groups?
Because of the numbers, because we can't have cohorts bigger than 12. And so when we were at 33, 34, that immediately went to 3 cohorts.
Were there similarities between cohort 1 and 2 that you noticed when the semester started?
Similarities, yes, and we've noticed it with cohort 3, and so now we're just anticipating it for cohort 4. That there's a huge transition, and I think this is probably with all of college freshmen, not just students that are majoring in pragmatic studies, but there's such a huge transition the first several weeks. And you guys know, because you guys were freshmen, right? So the first 3 or 4 weeks is, oh my God, it's not just about knowing where to go. It is, how do I stay organized? How do I go from, taking 7 classes in a day in high school to taking only 1 class? And what do I do with all this extra time? And is it okay for me to allocate a nap during the day?
And how do I take notes? Because note taking is totally different.
Yep. How do I take notes? How do I keep track of my assignments?
I had to totally relearn that.
Yeah. And we have some apps and stuff for that, but also, the way we teach in pragmatic studies is just so different. So, students acclimate to a whole new style of teaching that most of them have not had before, and professors are acclimating to a whole new group of students. So, that in terms of similarities, there's just such a huge growth that first couple of weeks.
I think the way that the professors teach us is just perfect.
Yeah, and we used Universal Design for Learning, which, if anybody listening wants to Google that, UDL, you can Google it. But we do project-based learning, but the instruction is much more individualized, and of course it's differentiated. But I know the term differentiated instruction is kind of worn out at this point. But it's much more individualized, and as faculty, one of the hallmarks is we're more concerned with who we're teaching than what we're teaching. Yeah.
When you were and the professors were interviewing students for cohort 3, did you already know that it was going to be split into 4 groups, or?
Once we got to that point, so as we, because we're admitting them as they meet the requirements. Yeah. So once we were getting up, I think I started telling faculty, like, hey, we're sitting at 38, oh, we're at 39. Once we get to 40, once we get to 37, really, we're splitting into 4. And then, there was some panic, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to serve that many students? And so far, that's where we're at.
So you mentioned earlier that the max right now cohorts is 4. Is that still going to be the case
for now? Yeah, just in terms of space and availability of professors, and certainly, we have plenty of faculty, and UST is accommodating us all the way around in terms of space, but quality is so much more important than quantity. And so I would not want to get so big that we're overextended, and that the demands on professors' time are compromised. We certainly want students to be first, not all of the other things. So for now, we're sitting at that. Okay. We just want to ensure that students are getting what they need, and if we're all spread too thin, and I tend to spread myself pretty thin, I know Ms. G does too, and so if we're all spread too thin, then we're not able to serve the students like we need to.
A huge thing that you have worked since last year is creating an opportunity for this program is for students not only to receive their associates, but a bachelor's degree as well. Was that idea, was that something that you wanted from the beginning of the program?
No, actually, when we first set it up, my thought was, okay, if we have an associate's degree and there's an internship piece with it, then we have students that they are going into adulthood with a college degree and work experience, and now they can go into the world and do whatever it is they're going to do as adults. But high school just does not, and by design, right? High school doesn't prepare them for adulthood. So there's got to be something between. So the initial thought was college degree and work experience, and that will launch them. What we learned in the first cohort, though, was, and really, actually, full disclosure, when I pitched it, we thought out of a cohort of 10 to 12, maybe we'd have 1 or 2 that wanted to go into a bachelor's program, and so we would figure that out as it came. That wasn't what happened at all. We ended up with most of the students wanting to do a bachelor's degree, all of the students being capable of doing, the students we were admitting, they are the brightest, they have the best ideas, they're the most creative people, and so we were admitting all of these students that, really an associate's degree wasn't where they wanted to stop, they wanted to keep going. And so I wrote a bachelor's degree. We launched that thing this past fall. So here we are with that. Yep. And that's a bachelor's of applied arts and sciences in social innovation and human service. And students that do that take 12 major classes. The classes are in social innovation and human service. So all the classes are, there's very much a sociology, law and order, businessy, nonprofity, community service kind of basis to those. But then the other 6 courses they take are in a minor of their choosing. And we fully support them in those minor courses, but they take a minor outside of our faculty and anything that UST offers.
What has it been like seeing the students go into the bachelor's program, and what has that been like for you?
That has been mind-blowing because you guys you just don't stop. And it's this, my frustration has always been the lack of opportunities for a marginalized community. And you provide these people with an opportunity and they just don't stop. You guys just keep going and you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you just keep blowing everything out of the water. I mean, for crying out loud, you were in Belize last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, you were in another country on a study abroad. I mean, Guillermo, you're the editor and the writer for a podcast. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. It's just, you guys just don't stop. You just don't stop. You keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And then, of course, that makes me think about graduate school.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is it kind of sad not to hear that many of the students from the first cohort would not continue with the bachelor's?
I don't think it was sad. I think that the students that didn't continue to the bachelor's didn't need it. At that point in their lives, they didn't feel like they needed that option, and they had some really good things going on, and they've gone into the workforce or into other educational opportunities, and so it's still a success. That, you know what I mean? Because we do get students that have done colleges or majors in other places or even here or whatever, and it didn't work out because they didn't get what they needed. And so they come here and they get what they need, and then they're able to launch into whatever's next. And so we certainly still served them. So no, I wouldn't say sad. Mm-mm.
As you know, some students in cohort 2, like me and Guillermo, are graduating in May.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel?
Again, it's just so affirming to me that you guys just don't stop. And then there's the other side of the coin. It just pisses me off that I think the world didn't provide an opportunity for you for all that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you guys get to say, you know what?
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, all the people and I think I've told you guys this before, there've been one or two people in my life that told me I couldn't. And my mom used to joke all the time when I was a kid that, you know, no doesn't mean no. No to you, no means keep asking. I have had in graduate school, actually, I had a professor tell me I, would never be anything, would never go anywhere, shouldn't apply for a doctoral program, and that always stuck with me. And
it hurts.
Yeah, and so when I did and when I finished, it's that look at me now thing. Like, really, you said I could? Well,
yeah.
Now what? And so with you guys, I think, now what? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to plaster your pictures and your stories everywhere. Me and Miss G are writing a book to that end, just to plaster the story that now what? And now what? You said what? You said what? Tell me again? Yeah.
For the students who are in the bachelor's program, those in the first cohort, and for us in the second cohort that are about to next fall semester, you've said that we can continue to be here to get our masters.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep.
Do you in the future have plans to include that for the program here?
I don't know about a master's because I don't know that there are enough students that would need it or that would want it. And I feel like if you guys wanted to do a graduate degree, you certainly could. And so maybe there would be a way that we could create an entity to support if you wanted to do a master's here, or if you wanted to do a master's somewhere else, then there would be a way to support that. But creating an all-out master's or a graduate degree, I don't know that the need is there because I feel like you guys could do it. And if you needed or wanted the support from any of us, of course we'd be there. And we do have a couple of students that are in the first cohort that are doing the bachelor's that'll graduate next year that are going to apply to graduate school. And so we will certainly have some mechanisms in place to support that.
Are you still surprised by the program's success?
I don't know that I'd say surprised because, again, it gets back to that whole idea that like give people an option, give somebody an opportunity. Don't tell somebody that you can be what you want and you can go for the brass ring and then not give them an avenue to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, am I surprised at the community support? No. Am I surprised at what you guys are doing? No. I'm not surprised or shocked at all because I never had a doubt. Not at all.
Where do
Not
you
at all.
see the program in 10 years?
Oh
Do
my
you have
goodness.
plans?
I don't know. I don't even know.
Probably have 10 cohorts.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be here as long as the need is here, and as long as we can serve, then I want to do it. And if the need subsides or if we no longer have a need, then I really feel like God will put some other idea. I'm known for coming up with ideas and all these projects, and so I think if the need is served somewhere else, or if me or we are no longer of service, then I think God will give me something else to do. Yeah, but this is my thing, and it is a blast. It's an absolute blast.
What do you hope will happen to this podcast? Do you hope that it will continue like once we have graduated with our bachelors?
Wouldn't that be so cool if it did?
Yeah.
Like for now, I feel like that what we've learned, because when I said, you guys want to do a podcast? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how to do anything but check my email. And so but thank goodness you guys do. And so when I asked Miss G and she's like, yeah, whatever. Miss G's always like, whatever you want, whatever. And we were putting together, I was like, well, we'll have the kids do it because I know you guys are adults, but right. But we'll have the kids do it because neither one of us knows what we're doing. And so we were very careful about who we asked to do it. And everybody, I was like, okay, this person would be very good at this. This person would be very good at this. And so really, I think if nothing else, then we've all gained experience in how to do this and how to get it. And I think the other thing is if you have an idea, I remember my priest said one time in a homily, in a sermon, years ago when I first started working on this, it was right before, he said, God is a creator, and we're supposed to be Christ-like, and we're supposed to live in his image and all of the things, and what are you creating? Because we're designed to be creative and not necessarily artsy-fartsy, but the word creative means to create, and so what are you creating? And then in that same time, President Ludwig, who's the president here at UST, we had our faculty opening day thing when everybody comes back in August, and he was talking about his 5-year plan and all these goals and and one of the things he said was, if you have an idea for something, throw it out there, let's talk about it. And I thought, well, okay, well, this is what I've been working on, this is what I've been thinking about, let me throw it out there. And so the whole thought was, even with putting pragmatic studies together, was, well, even if we put this whole thing together and it goes nowhere, it was a fun project. We're not out anything but time and energy, and I feel like I have plenty of time to do that. So with this, I feel like it's the same idea. If it doesn't work and it goes nowhere, so what? It was a blast. It was fun, and we learned lots of cool skills. And maybe one of the takeaways for all of us is the idea that if you have an idea, then do it. If it doesn't work, so what? Come back to the table and do something else or don't. But if you don't push your ideas forward, if you don't take them to fruition, then they just kind of percolate and sit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where it'll be.
So, are you planning to, if the opportunity opens for more cohorts, are you hoping to push for more cohorts? Or
Right now we're trying to kind of temper it because
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that none of us is spread too thin.
Yeah, like you said earlier.
You know, I really want to make sure that we are all, one of the biggest things with the program is that we are all accessible all of the time to students and to each other. And as program faculty, we are very close. We spend a lot of time together, and we spend a lot of time with you guys as students, and we're definitely part of a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose that. And my concern with getting too big is then we lose that person to person factor. We lose that interaction factor. And for those of us that do life differently, you know, we're all relational, and we learn best and we make the most progress when we have relationships to build on. And so, you know, when those relationships become compromised by getting too big, then in my opinion, we need to not be that big.
Yeah.
Because the relationships are paramount.
You know, with the program, you know, growing, you know, every year, you know, you obviously need to have more professors, you know. So how many professors have you interviewed actually this semester?
I don't even know how many we've interviewed, but right now we have a faculty of 17.
Wow.
Yep, 17. So me and Miss G, either way, we are the full-time people, and then we have 15 adjuncts. So, yep, and we are adding, I think we're adding 2 this fall. So yeah, it's we're kind of getting in a cadence of things, kind of getting in a swing.
Speaking of expanding and pushing yourself to go farther, you are thinking of creating a learning living community on campus.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was the idea that made you think of doing this,
Actually,
and what's the need for that?
Actually, so Residence Life asked about that, and I was very hesitant and actually initially said no. And I was adamantly said no. A living learning community is a group of students that live on campus, you know, in an on-campus housing situation with a common thread.
Yeah.
So they'll have an LLC for athletes. They'll have an LLC for the honors college. You know, they'll have an LLC by department. So for ours, it would be an LLC for pragmatic studies majors.
Yeah.
And my initial response of no, absolutely not, I wasn't doing that, was really from the fear that students would be relegated into space that I was not willing to do. And we've spent so much time pushing the full inclusion, full immersion model that I wasn't willing to say, no, now we're going to put people back in the portable building again.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had to work through a lot of that. Now it is an opt-in. So if you want to do it, you can. You don't have to do it. So certainly not a mandate. So you know, we'll see how it goes. We've had some families that have requested it, some students that have requested to do that, and we'll see how it goes. My hard stop with that whole idea though is we're not going backward, right? We're not shoving people that do life differently into the portable buildings in the back of the school. It's just, and I mean that, you know, metaphorically, but we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So Guinan Hall is going to be the place where the LLC is going to be, right? Was like, that's something like once you kind of were into the idea, like that you kind of felt that was the perfect place for it to be, you know?
No, actually we were going to do it, we were going to have some different dorms to do it, but I said no. And so by the time I was like, well, okay, maybe we can, let's see if we can make this work. Guinan was a better option. So I don't know that we'll do that again next year, but it's kind of a pilot this year to see what happens.
Yeah,
so we'll see. Yeah.
What would you like your legacy for the program to be?
Ooh, legacy for the program. I want to stay true to the basic tenets of the program and to the mission of the program, that we provide opportunities for people that do life differently, and we create space for people that learn differently. And I want to always stay true to that. If it ends up, not working after a while, or whatever happens, I want to always stay true to that, and I'm not willing to negotiate that at any level, really.
What would you like for your legacy to be?
Oh my gosh. What do I want my legacy to be? I have 4 kids. And when I had my first baby, I was 25, and I looked at him and I kept telling my mom, who was there in the hospital with me, of all the stupid stuff I did when I was a kid, and all the dumb decisions, all the bad stuff I did, and God still thinks I'm good enough to be this kid's mom. And then I had another baby, and I thought, oh my God, like, God thinks I'm good enough to have 2 babies, and then I had 4 babies. Like, how? And I've done some stupid stuff, and I keep doing stupid stuff, and God still thinks I'm good enough to do this. And so, to that end, I've always wanted them to be able to take care of people that can't take care of themselves. So I want my legacy, I think, to be that I provided space for people, and that I was good enough to serve people in that capacity. That this, anybody could do this, anybody could put this program together, but God thought that I was good enough to be with you guys. So same experience when I became a mom, just that I think I want my legacy to be that I served people and I was good enough to do that.
Well, speaking out for all of us here in cohort 2, I mean, you have done that for us, Dr. Flores.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we're
you.
looking forward to the future of this program, truly.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This has been a wild ride, right?
It has
Yep.
been, yeah. But
Yeah,
we're still
it's
going to
been
be
wild.
here. I mean, we have 2 more years for our bachelor's.
Yeah.
And I don't know, speaking here anyone, but I want to continue my master's here.
Yeah, most of you guys definitely need to be in graduate school. And so we are absolutely ready to help you guys with applications and all of the things to get into that, whether you come to UST for graduate school or you go somewhere else. I mean, certainly all of you guys on the production team, you all need to be in graduate school.
Yeah.
So I feel like these are just stepping stones for you to get there. Yeah.
That is it for our first episode of Praggin N Braggin.
Yeah.
Tune in next time for our second episode.
If you want to know more about us, subscribe to our Instagram and Facebook accounts. You can watch this episode on YouTube or listen to it on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day. My name is Guillermo Perrano. I am the host, showrunner, and head writer of Praggin N Braggin.
And my name is Victoria Hoffman. I'm the social media guru and co-host of Praggin N Braggin.
My name is Sam Balchi. I'm the executive producer for the Praggin N Braggin podcast.
My name is Colin Porras. I am producer of Praggin N Braggin.
I'm Brock Perez. I am the man behind the camera.
I'm Noah Alexander. It's a podcast.
Woohoo!